Hey guys, welcome to the Starting Million Show. I'm your host, Asher Al. Welcome. So for today, what I plan to do is actually I'm going to talk a little bit about how it's a pretty important topic for anybody who's actually creating content or doing a business online is how do you create content for your website, for your business? So a lot of people tend to have a website, but their website, a website has multiple purposes. So for me, what I did was because for me, what happens is that in terms of helping people and clients, in terms of helping students, in terms of helping prospects, what happens is sometimes I just need to take a look at the website, and then afterwards I can give them suggestions on what they can do to improve. And when one or two of them come to me, usually when they come to me, say, Asher, my website, I think it looks okay, but I'm sorely lacking in content. What can I do to get more content on my website? That's a very, very good question. Now, why do we have these questions? Because first of all, they're asking the right question. How do we attract people? So, hey, Yongin, welcome to the show. Good to see you. Good to see you. So, in this training, in this short video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how do you create content for your website. So, this is a pretty important topic that everybody, I think it's a good skill for you to understand. How do you utilize this? Okay. So, here's the very first thing that we need to do. Why do we need content? Why do we need content? It's because the first thing that we need to know is we need to understand that when you're getting content, you're getting traffic to your website, all this, you need this thing called quality traffic. Okay. And why? Why do you need quality traffic? There is a difference. Now, if you're just getting traffic to your website, okay, there are many, many ways to get traffic to your website. But if you have a whole bunch of people coming to your website, and not a single person buys, or not a person who is a real human is interested, or not your target market, then what you've really done is just getting a whole bunch of people that's like, interested, but no one's really doing anything. So I would always much more prefer a traffic sources, the people who are coming to my website, watching my videos, watching my stuff, are the people who are pretty much the pre-qualified. And how do we pre-qualify these people? It actually comes down to a few very simple fundamental things. Now, I want to clarify that for this particular sharing I'm going to do today, it's not about what kind of content you put on your social media. Okay, because social media has different strategies and different tactics you want to apply. But what I'm going to teach you today can apply if you're getting a little bit creative. However, why do we need quality traffic? Is because when you are when you're getting traffic to come into your website, for your business, whatever they have, you are going to get them. You're going to build them over time. So when it comes to quality, not very often, unless you're using borrowed traffic, which is another topic for another day. Okay, that means you're using traffic from another expert, using traffic that another expert already has, and he just with a simple email or simple video can send thousands and thousands of very pre-qualified people to your website. Unless you have that kind of connection, okay, most people more often than not actually need to build their website. Okay, small businesses need to build their website. So how do you get more people coming to your website? How do you get more traffic to your website? You need quality traffic. Okay, so how do you get quality traffic? We can do it through this thing called search engine optimization. So with that, why do we need to do this thing called search engine? So the very first fundamental step is what can you do to make sure your quality traffic is ensure that you have keyword research. Now, this is the reason why I say this is a little bit different compared to this social media. Yes, the word just escaped my brain for a while. Social media. It's because social media is not search-based content. It's rather story-based content. So that means when you're creating content you see on YouTube, on Facebook, I keep saying I'm juggling things because there's so many terms, right? So when on Facebook, on Insta, on different social media, you're very much based on story-based content. Okay, you're pretty much based on, if I never knew this, but now I discovered there's a better way to do this. I never knew that about this particular stuff until I'm in my 30s. I never knew about this, or how can I, etc., etc. So social media is very heavy on story-based content. Okay, search-based content, however, is not so heavily reliant on that. So here's the pros and cons. When you're doing social media kind of content, you can get a burst of content because, like, for example, on Facebook, okay, a lot of content that you put on Facebook can get viral because of the nature of Facebook. A lot of content that you put on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Facebook and LinkedIn is easy to share. It's easy to tag somebody. It's easy to say, hey, you want to tag somebody to watch this. Afterwards, the name gets tagged. You just need to add the @ sign, spell the person's name out, and then you will just tag the other person. the other person can watch it. So it's easy to actually link to someone else. So that's social aspect is easier on Facebook. Now, but if you're doing it on, let's say, on YouTube, you're doing it on other places, places where it's not the kind of content, it's actually harder. It's harder to share it out. So, but because of this this is social media kind of content is very story based, it allows you to get, it can allow you to go viral quite quickly if you manage to hit a few of the right points. Okay, but because to do that, you need to have a good story base. For people who are not so much very strong to the story base, okay, then what happens, what you can do is you go into something called search based. Now, search based content is what you do is that you actually go on to the research tools, find stuff that people are already searching for, and you create content, right? And the big reason why you do that is because keyword research removes guesswork. This is the big reason. So you don't have to guess what are people asking. You don't have to guess what those people are searching for. Now, one of the reasons why I came up, we decided to talk about this particular topic was because I owed someone this particular topic that I want to talk about. All right, her name is Mary. So what happens is that she asked me some tips about how to get more content to a website. So this is her website, okay, Mary Kitson. So from here, let me get rid of this. All right. So if I check onto her website right now, okay, there's no content. So this is one of the challenges that this person has. So just case, this is a case study I want to share. How can we actually get more content onto website? So it's a pretty nice website. There's like some simple stuff, information, some okay, the about isn't working. There's some other stuff here. So I'm not going to click through, but so there's some kind of content. So how do you beef it up to attract more people? The way we can do it, like I mentioned, right, is actually using create content. Now, because of how web is the web is right now, you can create content. Here's what you do. After you've created a content, you can put it onto your website. Fine and dandy, perfectly fine. But what you must do is a necessary part, okay, is actually to take that same content and share it across multiple platforms. Because it doesn't make sense if, let's say, you have content and you're trying to get a whole bunch of people to force them to come over to your website. It is not really working that much these days already. It used to be a situation where, when it comes to SEO, it makes much more sense to get a whole bunch of people coming to your website, draw more traffic to your website, etc., etc. But with the trend of how people are behaving online these days, they don't go to websites specifically. They stay on social media and occasionally hop out of social media to visit a website. But if they're doing a search-based, however, if they're doing search-based content, they are searching on Google or they're searching on YouTube. And what happens is that from there, then they'll be led to your website. Okay, when they're led to your website, then you can have, that's where you actually start to give them more content. So on let's say on social media, again, let's come back again. When you're talking about social media content on Facebook, talking about social content on LinkedIn and kind of stuff like this, you want to take the same content and repurpose. That means put it everywhere. Just put it everywhere. Okay, and you want to have a lot of strong call to action. So let's take a little bit of look about how do we actually get this kind of content. So like I mentioned earlier a bit, right? So like keyword research removes the guesswork. So how do you find the right keywords? One of the resources that I like to always use is this thing called from Google itself. Okay, so if you search on this thing called the Keyword Planner, right? Google Keyword Planner itself. Just search for this. It's immediately available on Google itself. Once you go inside this account, go inside and just do some keyword research. The idea that you want is that you want a sweet spot of somewhere in between. There's some competition. Okay, you don't want. Here's what I say again. You don't want content that, like, for example, there's a lot of people fighting for it. So it's like, for example, 1 million searches. So if there's 1 million searches, that's great. However, if you have 1 million searches, that means the chances of you having to compete with a lot of people is very high. Okay, so you don't want to, you not say you can't go for it, but it requires a lot more steps. You don't want to go for all the extremely low-hanging fruits, let's say 0 to 100 or 100 to a few hundred K. Those are too little. So what happens that, even though those are keyword terms, in terms of the amount of people that can be brought over to your website, is very little. It's very little. The only times you would actually decide to go for those specific, very small keywords, if it's only of one criteria, if there's buying intent. That is the only reason why you're creating content with those very tiny, minute numbers. But if you're doing on search base, that means you're trying to draw traffic to your website. you want somewhere in the middle. Okay, you are looking for about a few hundreds to a few thousands, right? So you use the keyword research tool from Keyword Planner from that. The other thing you can look for is actually this website called Answer the Public. Okay, Answer the Public is another pretty good tool that you can use for. So what happens is it looks like pretty much like this over here. So when you're doing this tool actually tells you what kind of words here are what are people searching for. So it goes by this color. So if you look in terms of the color here, right, it goes from light to dark. So when you go from light to dark itself, okay, or rather from dark to light, whatever you're looking at, the darker it is, that means there's more people searching for it. So you could create content that's very specific to using only for the darker words. And if you have a bit more spare time, you can actually look at the lighter keywords. So this is one of the other tools that you can use to actually create content based on this. So if you search for it, by the way, if you're looking for creating content, anybody who tells me that, I don't know how to create content, with these two tools itself, right, you will have pretty much unlimited amount of ideas for you to get into. It's just whether you want to get into creating those content or whether you have enough time to schedule creating that content. And the other tool that I personally like to use, all right, is this thing called Keywords Everywhere. Now, Keywords Everywhere is personally for me, I use this a lot more. And to me, the reason why is because this keyword tool allows me to get into a lot of the specific numbers without being too pricey. Of course, if you're talking about, let's say, the Google Keyword Planner itself, right, they give you very generic numbers because it's a free account. Of course, there's some other things you can get deeper into. But I find in terms of ease of use, in terms of, this whole research experience, my personal experience, I really like Keywords Everywhere. Now, when Keywords Everywhere, for me, it is a paid tool. So why I recommend it is because it's $10, okay, for 100,000 credits, right? $10 for 100,000 credits. This $10, I personally have not been able to run out of it. Okay, I've been doing a fair amount of research, a fair amount of it, and I'm still only currently about 80,000. Okay, so that means I've used only about 20,000, and I do a fair amount of research. So it's very hard for me to run out. So to me, let's say for an entire year of usage, this allows you to use the amount of credits for 1 year. It makes a whole bunch of sense. So I like to use this tool called Keywords Everywhere. It's one of my favorite tools to use. So if you are doing research, okay, using these tools, just these 3 tools, okay, we're able to help you to create a whole bunch of content already. Now, after you've done the research, after you've done the keyword research and finding what kind of tools, the next thing you need to do is to create the content. All right. So how do you create the content? The first thing you need to do is after you determine the keywords itself, you want to make sure that you create content that has strong titles, because your titles are the ones that actually get people to hooked onto from the, let's say on LinkedIn, on Google, on YouTube, on Facebook, on any social media. The titles play a big part of getting people from whenever they're scrolling, whatever, stopping their scroll and then bringing them over to check out your content. So you definitely want to have that. All right. So make sure that your content has strong titles. Now, you might be asking, what is a strong title? There's a few things that you can really consider. One of the things, the easiest thing to do is to ask Google. Okay. There's already a lot of people who actually done their research of being able to create titles. For example, I just did a search over there on looking about, for example, how to create content, how to create titles. And here's from this website called Crazy Egg. Okay, there's actually 41 examples what you can do. So I like what they have. They have a few templates you can use. The X best ways to get this without that. Okay, this is one example. So the X best way, for example, the 3 best ways to, in terms of Mary's site, because she's in the gardening niche, okay, the 3 best ways to grow your plants without insecticides, for example. Okay, I'm not a gardening expert, but I'm just throwing some stuff. So as the gardening expert or as the expert that you are creating content, you can use this title. So what happens is that one crucial thing when it comes to creating all this different content is that usually there is some additional benefit from the viewer, the reader who reads that title and then find out, you know what, this is interesting. Let's find out more. Meaning that the title is blind. Okay, you won't be able to tell the complete idea from the title. Let's look at a few more examples. Okay, so you're running out of something. Here's how to fix it. So you're running out of time, running out of money, running out of energy. How to fix it? How to avoid missing out? What should you do next? Here's how to fix it. Okay, and there's another example here. We need to talk about blah blah blah. It's a something. So this website allows, if you're looking for this is just one of the resources. There's a ton. So for this particular example, there's 41 examples you can use. So just simply go to the website and just look at any of this and just really utilize these titles to create a kind of content that you want that has interesting titles that can get people to engage. Now, after you have created the titles, what is the next thing you do? The next thing you do is to craft the content, right? You need to craft the content. So how do you create a content? Is you need to use a simple yet effective structure. So here's one of the easiest structures you can ever use in any kind of content. Okay, you want to get them started, so you basically do this: tell them what you're gonna tell them, and then tell them what you just told them. Really simple, those 3 steps. Okay, let me repeat myself. First step is tell them what you're going to tell them, and the third step, tell them what you just told them, right? So if, let's say we're talking again about the gardening niche, we tell them, let's say I'm just using, let's look over here, the example that I can think of. Okay, so let's use over here. I see here. So are you still doing something? You might regret it, like that, right? So are you still using, again, because I'm not in a gardening niche, all right? So are you still doing, I should have choose something, but that's in my area, but it's not. So let's just throw some random numbers. Okay, are you still using this particular? Are you still using pesticides? You might regret it. Okay, let's say just use it for example. So what happens is that you tell them, are you still using pesticides? You might regret it. So now you go into the content. From you are going inside the content, what you go next is say this. Okay, if you're using pesticides for your plants, okay, let me show you that you might regret it. Why? Because they will cause you more damage. And in this particular video, in this particular blog post, in this particular article, I'm going to tell you the reasons why you might regret using insecticides. And afterwards, you go into those points. You tell them exactly why, the reason why you do that, okay? And after you explain the reasons why, and after the last point at the bottom is, now this is what you tell them, what you just told them. Now that you understand why you should not be using insecticides on your plants, etc., then now you can go forth and make sure that you start growing beautiful plants in your garden, etc. Okay, so this is how you actually create that content. You first have you give a very interesting title, then you tell them what you're going to tell them, and thirdly, you tell them what you just told them. Simple as that. Once you finish this part, there's one more criteria that you must do. Okay, basically it's 5 parts: the title, the 3 parts I just told you, and the one important thing over here in creating content is to make sure that you have a lead magnet. You need to make sure that you bring them in to your funnel, and so for you to follow up with them with a reason to contact you. Okay, now the reason for this is because when it comes to the internet, when you're trying to get people to come to your business, to your traffic, whatever that you're trying to achieve, it's very fast for someone to just say, I'm not interested and I'm leaving. But at any point in time, if you get anyone who reads to the last point, okay, who actually reads through an entire thing, chances of them being interested to find out a little bit more is a lot higher. So therefore, you want to make sure that you find a way to keep in touch with these people. Because remember, from the very first point of what I talk about here, this is actually quality traffic. Because first of all, they may be doing research, okay, depending on the kind of keyword you've used, or they may be buying. They may be a buying market. All right. So what happens is that when you do this, you are actually having quality traffic. And once you have enough content, enough people, enough whole bunch of content on your website, okay, or on your social medias, everything leading them to you, make sure that you always have a strong call to action that gets them to you for you to follow up with them. After you've done that with a strong reason, that's where you can start to build the rapport, to build that relationship, and to give them and help them even more. This is really just how you do, and this is a whole overview of what you can do to make sure that you create content, to create, content that is for your website and for YouTube. And this is the reason why I say this, because it's more search-based content, not so much in terms of social media kind of content. Now, if you're looking in terms of, if you're running out of ideas on what kind of content you can do, here's another idea that you can do. I'm just going to throw in just one simple idea, right? One simple idea is that you actually can just simply head over to, why am I wearing this? I'm not even using it. Oh, I know. It's because I'm listening to music later. Yes, just to make sure that I'm not talking to myself. Yeah, so another idea that you can use is that when you're creating content, okay, if you're running out of ideas, instead of trying to create something from scratch, what you can do, you do research, okay? That means you read on different people's articles. You can actually get the different articles, and then once you've read enough information, piece it all together in your head, and then you, in a sense, regurgitate those information, and you do the research for other people. Okay, so this is not plagiarism. I want to make this very, very clear. Plagiarism is if you're taking from one source and then pretty much just copy the flow, the structure, and just rephrase it and entire thing. That would be plagiarism. But if you're creating content from multiple resources, if you're doing research from multiple resources, that won't be plagiarism. Okay, then in this case, it's called research. So once you have done this, you put it together, you put it out there. That's how you do it. Okay, so that's one idea. The other idea you can really utilize is, again, like it's also still about books. Or not say research. You use on books. You go to Amazon, for example. There are tons of books from Amazon itself about your particular topic. And the cool thing about it is on Amazon, you can actually go into the book preview and simply look at the titles, at the table of contents. So if you're looking at the table of contents, those give you a lot of ideas on what you can create, what kind of content is interesting. All right, so those will allow you to, and that's another example to look into the table of contents. And another idea you can really use is, for example, if you do the best thing, which is just watching videos. All right, again, part of research. Let's say go on a TED Talk, you go to any of those big events or any kind of those hour-long kind of shows on YouTube or whatever long-form content. Watch through that stuff. Watch through the stuff, and then afterwards, if they mention a particular point, okay, feel free to actually mention, that for example, I learned an idea from this particular video I watched. Give credit where credit is due, and after you say mention it, and then you put in your own words. So you borrow the ideas and from different experts. The reason why I say this is pretty important, especially for new business owners and new content creators, is that you are not creating content based purely on what you think might work. You are leveraging the work of other experts. So you are not just talking about stuff that you're pulling out of thin air. You're really talking about stuff that you have done the research, that other experts have already done the research on. And then what you do, you're utilizing and leveraging on that expertise. Okay? So that's really what you need to really do. And if you have a plan to start to create more content for a website, I put it on whatever social media you got, on all social medias, that's what I would recommend, because that's where the people are spending time on. From that's how you get more and more traffic and business to your website. Okay, so that's all I have to say for this particular very short video to share with you about how can you create content. If you have any questions about this, feel free to leave a comment down below. And the other thing is that if you haven't done so already, why not head over to my website, join my group. Okay, so I have a free group where I'm actually starting to create more and more content like this. In fact, this video right now is in my group. All right, so it will stay in my group as well. So this when you're getting more and more content, I'm going to put it in my group. If you haven't done so already, feel free to join my group. It's over at significantstrategy.com. Okay, and head over here, significantstrategy.com/free group. Head over there, click, you'll be brought over to the group. Okay, and then from there, I can bring you in. And my focus right now is currently to help people about going on live streaming, how to use the power of live streaming to showcase your expertise, your knowledge, okay, to be able to help coaches, consultants go on live streaming, even with a very small audience, to be able to share their expertise, to create a business, to create content, okay, without having to do a ton of editing, all right, without having to do a ton of editing. And from that, you can make some income, income from that, all right, without having to spend that so much time of editing, because one of the hardest things to do for anybody really is in the editing work, all right? So you're very much welcome, Yongin. Thank you for watching together with me for this very short training video. So with that said, that's all I have for you. If you have any questions, once more, feel free to hit me up in the comments below, and I will see you next time. All right, see ya.